Now we want to switch gears to Wilfried Aulbur with Roland Berger. Roland Berger is an analyst firm that's taken a look at the automation piece for many industries. And Wilfried's going to bring a really good perspective. He's done some great data digging and some great thinking around our space as it relates to other spaces. So with that, I will hand it over to Wilfried to give us some of his thoughts on this initiative.
Perfect, Walt. Thank you very much. Everybody, I'm really happy to be here. It's a pleasure that I'm able to share our thoughts on automation in agriculture with you, albeit unfortunately not in person. So what I want to talk about today is our view on agricultural ecosystems and how do we cut the Gordian knot, in the sense that how do we drive and accelerate the need for automation in agriculture. And maybe if we move to the next slide. What we can see is that the global agricultural industry has a very large number of challenges. Many of them were pointed out already. One is the world population is growing. It will be about 10 billion by 2050. We will have to increase food production by 50%, and that with already scarce water resources. So clearly, we need to do more with less. That's a very, very real challenge that we face. The second problem is a problem of public pressure. Climate change is seen as a real problem. It definitely is a real problem for agriculture, but agriculture, and in particular large ag, is seen as part of the problem, generating a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions, being responsible for a certain amount of deforestation. And that is clearly a problem that's not going to go away, and that will force us to do things differently than in the past, be more sustainable, and also communicate our efforts in these activities effectively. We've also heard that there is a long-term trend towards a dwindling rural labor force. Today, being in agriculture is not necessarily seen as a job that people would want to do. The consequences are wage inflation. Consequences are increased urbanization. And the consequence, or one of the resulting factors, is that we have an aging workforce in agriculture. We talked about the US with an average sort of age of around 60 years for farmers, but that's not limited to the US as well by itself. We do see the same tendencies across the globe, whether it's in India, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Africa, where the average age of farmers is similarly elevated. So that's a real issue. On top of that, we've had a tough time because of immigration restrictions, be it Brexit and Europe as one example, or the situation that we faced in the United States, and because of the pandemic. So we really do have a burning platform around the availability and affordability of labor in agriculture. One of the solutions is to say, okay, listen, let's move production to other regions. And we just heard it, that that's something that people are currently contemplating and have to contemplate in order to safeguard their businesses. If you look at Europe, the same trend is visible. About 40% of vegetables and fruit is the self-sufficiency level in Europe today. The rest of the production has already moved to Northern Africa and other regions. Now, that may help as far as immigration and access to labor is concerned, but it does also create its own complexities in terms of value addition within our regions. It does create complexities in terms of strategic dependencies. So clearly, we have a very strong burning platform. And maybe we can move to the next slide. The solution, or one of the solutions, if you don't want to move production, is really technology. We have to find ways to become much more efficient in the way we do things. And I think some of the topics or themes are around precision, value addition, integration, and sustainability. Precision farming, with its promise to look at production at the level of the single plant or the single animal, to realize higher yields, to ensure better quality, ensure traceability, and at the end of the day, more sustainable and animal-friendly products. Clearly something that we want to go after. Sustainability is needed because we need to make sure that on the one hand, we limit the amount of input, be it pesticides, fertilizer, herbicides, and we close loops, reuse as much waste as possible, and also find new ways to value add by finding applications for that waste that allow us to sell byproducts or additional products and improve farm economics that way. And last but not least, we have the opportunity to look at integrated solutions, which clearly are again something that is required by customers today, where we would like to make sure that we have full transparency across the production process. So technology clearly is the way forward, and I think that is what is exciting about this initiative as well. It is a very, very important part, a very important component of driving agriculture to the next level. If we go to the next slide. Technology is important, but if we look at what technology means, it is something that's also highly complex. We have a large array of technologies. We have robotics and automation, imagery and sensors, biotech, big data, AI, VR, AR, platforms, so a whole range of technologies that we can leverage and need to figure out what is the right combination of these technologies. And at the same time, we have a very dynamic and very complex ecosystem around the technologies. Today, everybody, whether it's retailers, whether it's the OEMs, whether it's suppliers such as Bosch or technology companies such as Trimble and Microsoft, or a whole range of startups, has a stake in this game. And while this is a big opportunity because I have a very, very large range of companies that I can work with and I can try to sort of cooperate with to find solutions that address the problems of farmers, it's also difficult in the sense that it becomes hard to figure out who should I work with. It's difficult for startups to understand where does my technology fit in and who can I partner with to really make sure that I get the right impact in the market. And it's equally difficult for companies, whether they are so Bosch or others, to see which startup can I really work with and how can I sort of evaluate all these different opportunities and technology solutions and integrate them in my portfolio, make sure that I can work with these startups and drive the industrialization and the scale up of these solutions. So it is complex to find your way in this ecosystem. The second slide or the next slide shows it's not only a complex environment, it's also an environment where technology really enables a lot of shifts in the value chain. There's a rebalancing of power in the value chain. And a good example is a little bit the tussle between the push system that we had in the past, basically the OEMs and the seed providers pushing their solutions to the growers, and then the whole thing went from there, towards a more pull-oriented system where technology such as blockchain today gives retailers an opportunity to say, okay, listen, I really understand the customer. I know what happens in terms of trends, what happens in terms of fast and slow moving SKUs. And I can use my customer intelligence via technology to really now work down with my partners in the upstream value chain to now say, okay, listen, let's work on quality, let's work on transparency, let's work on sustainability standards. I need it because my customers want it. And by the way, let's also look at the definition of a go-to-market for product innovation and the coordination and bundling of input factors. So this kind of shift of balance is a challenge in some sense for growers. It's an opportunity potentially for the initiative that we have over here, because it definitely lends additional push towards taking innovation and making it work within the agricultural value chain. So we talked about the complexity of the ecosystem. We talked about the volatility in terms of the value chain and who is going to capture what kind of part of the value chain. On top of that, on the next slide, we have a challenge, or we have the challenge of the complexity of the technology itself. If we're talking about robotic farming, this is a hard problem to crack. It's a hard nut to tackle, right? The reason is we have to worry about a whole range of technologies, learning and adaptation, for example. We work in open systems. It's not enough to train my AI once and then run with it. This is not a warehouse, right? Things change in an agricultural setting. I need to be aware and handle cloud integration and edge computing. I need to understand geolocation, vision, and sensing, and that in an agricultural environment, which again is unstructured. I need to think about scaling my technology and run swarms of independent robots through fields or through rows of trees to be able to generate the kind of impact and the kind of efficiency that I need to replace human labor. And that requires me being able to drive or to develop and run autonomous vehicles that operate as a swarm. I need to think about pattern recognition and AI, manipulators, actuation, human-robot interaction, and safety. So it's a really, really tough, complex problem. And what we'll see on the next slide is that this tough problem is really made so much harder by the kind of environment that we have to handle. We have an unstructured environment. There is mud, there is dirt that's going to block sensors. I need to figure out how to handle it. Driving an autonomous vehicle on a highway, like Daimler does it or others do it today, is easier than driving it on a muddy environment in a field. Looking at the impact of ambient light, of weather conditions, background, changing forms of fruits is a real complication that we need to figure out how to handle. And at the end of the day, we have tough competition. Humans are quite effective in terms of picking strawberries, picking apples. So making sure that my solution is faster and as accurate as a human and really takes care or is able to replace that human in the harvesting process, for example, is a tough challenge. We have a few examples where that's feasible, but by and large, we still are significantly slower than a human picker. We have a lack of standards, and I think that's one of the areas that really needs to be tackled. We have a lack of standards, which does make it very difficult for us to do and drive modular product development. Ideally, what I should do is not reinvent the wheel, but focus on where I'm really very good. Could be a soft manipulator. So I focus on a soft manipulator and the actuation, but I shouldn't be focusing on necessarily developing an autonomous vehicle, right? Ideally, my solution can just plug and play with the solutions that are available in the market. I would want a testing environment that clearly defines the performance of the solutions that we have available, that drives structured competition in that market. It also makes it easier for farmers to understand which technology works, which technology doesn't work, or in which environment do these various technologies work. And last but not least, we also need standards, for example, for homologation, to be able to scale solutions up quickly and across regions. We have a challenge around crop dependency. The fact that we have very different crops is an issue in the sense that the payoff is harder to get. It is harder to attract investor interest and funds to this particular area. And I think that's another area where hopefully standardization and multifunctionality can change the rules of the game. In terms of business partners, we may even have an opportunity to work with non-standard business partners. If we look at the vertical takeoff and landing space, for example, which is the drones that carry people and then hopefully carry us from the city to the airport at some point in time. What we see over there is that, yes, the aerospace industry is interested, the Boeings and the Airbus players, but it's also automotive players. Because they are saying, okay, listen, the production paradigm for these technologies has changed. These VTOLs are basically engines to transport people. They have very high volumes compared to the normal production that I see in an aerospace company. And that is something that as an automotive producer, as an automotive OEM, I know how to do. I know how to do lots and lots and lots of things at a very cheap cost. And here in this particular environment, swarm robots are a similar change in terms of the manufacturing philosophy. I'm going from large equipment to small equipment. I'm going from a few sort of numbers of equipment, a few tractors, to lots and lots of swarm robots. So I could look at other partners, either from the automotive industry or maybe even the consumer goods industry. We have issues around data, the availability, the use of data, who owns the data is one side of it. And the other thing is really the availability of testing data. We talked about working together and coming together and driving the industry forward. Data and testing data is another area where we can really need and profit from industrial commons, meaning a common set of data that is accessible for everybody so that people can quickly test their new technologies and understand where they stand and where they need to improve. And again, that's something that does exist in other industries. If you look at the telematics solutions in commercial vehicle applications, there you can get access and buy access to standard data that helps you to test your algorithms and bring your solution to market with a significant amount of confidence that whatever it is that you've designed actually works in real life. We need the same thing over here. Right? And then last but not least, obviously, we have to think about some of the complications. Do we sell a service versus do we sell machines? So I think what I'm trying to say is the technology is extremely important in today's agriculture. It is today very complex. The challenge that we're solving or trying to solve in terms of driving automation in harvest is extremely complex. And that's where, if we go to the next slide, some analysts, and these are not my numbers, right? But some analysts clearly are of the opinion, this is a very, very hard nut to crack. I think all of us agree that the current solutions are in the prototype or sort of semi-commercial or pre-commercial phase of their application vis-a-vis a potential rollout in the fields. Now, this particular analyst looked at the market and sort of believes that in terms of fresh fruit and citrus harvesting, penetrations by 2030 would be around 1 to 2% and 12 to 14% in 2040. That is just not good enough, right? This is not a situation that we can accept. We need solutions much, much faster. We need penetration much, much quicker. And the way to get there, at least some of the components, can be gleaned from other industries. If we go to the next slide, we can see what, again, happens in other industries. And this is an example of the automotive industry, an example of hydrogen trucks. Hydrogen trucks, again, is a technology that will happen, that has to happen, but it's at the sort of at the beginning stages of rolling it out and making an impact in long distance transportation. And here, really large companies that have access to a large network of sister companies, such as Hyundai. And Hyundai has a very distinct culture. They do like to do things by themselves. But even Hyundai says, okay, listen, this won't work if I do it by myself. I need to work with others to make sure that I can create an ecosystem from the technology that I provide to the technology that's needed to fuel my trucks, which is the hydrogen generation, to the distribution of hydrogen to make sure that it's available for my customers, to the service part, so that my customers can actually run this technology in a pay-per-use model, which means that I take, Hyundai being a big company, they actually take the technology risk till this technology is rolled out and stable. And then to the demand part, right? To the customers, the fleets that will actually use this technology. It's a complete ecosystem that covers the various aspects that are necessary to establish that the technology works and to establish a framework that's then scalable. This is the way how companies today have to work in an environment where technology is complex, in an environment where technology changes very, very rapidly, and in an environment where, quite frankly, nobody by themselves has the capability or the money to solve this problem, right? So for us, what it means in the agricultural context is sort of, at least some ideas are on the next page. We go to the next page, please. So what it means is we need to, and I believe that the G8, the Global Harvest Automation Initiative is a key enabler for this activity. We need to defragment the AgTech community. We need multi-centered global hubs that leverage the capabilities of all stakeholders. And I think it's great that we are bringing everybody together and we are bringing people from different parts of the globe together, because agriculture, AgTech is a global phenomenon. There is capability all over the place and we should leverage it and use it. We need, in my opinion, a common set of global standards. We absolutely need to drive modular development to be able to scale, to make sure that we don't have to test too much and have to have interoperability and clear external standards in terms of testing and homologation. Reusing rather than reinventing is really the need of the hour. If something is good, if you have a better idea, okay, improve upon it. But if you have an idea to improve something else, just reinvent only what you need to reinvent and just run with the rest and use a platform that enables you to get to market faster. Data accessibility, we talked about it. We believe this is something that needs to be an industry common. Partnerships for testing and deployment are extremely important. And this initiative is a good opportunity to bring various players and also the users of technology together and drive automation in agriculture. And last but not least, we need to continue to focus on design to scale, meaning multifunctional, multi-usage, plug-and-play design. And we need to be open to partner with companies to be able to scale and roll out technologies quickly. If you look at the example that we have currently with the COVID vaccines, yes, there are some companies that had, for example, BioNTech had a good idea, had a good vaccine, but we still need Moderna to make sure that we get this thing on the road and produced in mass and distributed quickly. And here we have the same phenomenon. There can be very good ideas within startups, but working with established players will enable us to bring these ideas to bear much, much faster. With that, I think I'm sort of done with my initial thoughts. My contact data is on the next page. So if anybody has any feedback or comments, I'm more than happy to engage. Thank you very much for having me.